Hey everyone, ready to jump into some AI stuff. Today, it's prompt engineering. It's a hot topic, everyone's got an opinion, but we're going to go deeper.
Yeah, exactly. Deeper. And we're going to get some really cool perspectives because we got to talk to some folks at Anthropic AI.
Those are the people behind Claude, right?
That's right, Claude. They're doing some really cutting-edge stuff.
Okay, cool. So we're going to try and cover what prompt engineering is, obviously, but also, what makes a good prompt engineer and where's this whole field headed?
Yeah, all that. We've got tons of interviews and demos to unpack. So let's get into it.
All right. So at the most basic level, prompt engineering is all about getting AI to do what we want. But I feel like it's not as simple as just giving it orders, is it?
No, definitely not. It's much more collaborative, I would say. You're kind of working with the model to shape its output.
Okay, so it's instead of just saying, hey, AI, write a poem, you're guiding it to create a specific kind of poem?
Exactly. Maybe you want a sonnet about the feeling of nostalgia, using imagery from a specific time period. There's this amazing example from Anthropic where they got Claude to compose a piece of music that was totally new, but it had the same style as a famous classical composer.
Wow. Bach reinvented.
Exactly. It was incredible.
So this is way beyond just churning out text. Okay, so how does someone even get good at this? Is it super technical or is there an art to it?
I'd say it's a mix of both. Anthropic, when they're looking for prompt engineers, they want people who are good communicators, obviously, but also people who can anticipate problems before they happen.
What do you mean by that?
So Amanda Askell, she's one of the leads on their fine-tuning team. She gave a great example. Imagine you're building a chatbot to pull info from a database. You might ask it to find all the names starting with G, but what if there aren't any G names? A good prompt engineer would think of that before it becomes an issue.
Oh, I see. So it's almost like you're debugging the prompt in advance by thinking about all the ways it could go wrong.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Like coding, but for language.
Yeah, and just like coding, there's this iterative process. You write a prompt, see how the model responds, then refine it and try again. It's that constant back and forth that makes it engineering.
So for our listeners, this is important because it means the better the prompts we write, the better the AI output. It's we're learning to speak the AI's language.
Precisely. And speaking of language, let's bust some myths about prompting. You've probably heard that giving the AI a persona is super helpful, pretend you're a historian, that kind of thing. But Amanda Askell, she actually says honesty is usually better. Just state your role, explain the task, and the model will get it.
Okay, so no need to have a Shakespearean dialogue with the AI, just be direct.
Yeah, pretty much. But of course, there are nuances. Zach Witten, another prompt engineer at Anthropic, he's had success using metaphors. He once got good results by asking the model to grade a chart as if it were a high school assignment.
Interesting. So it's not that metaphors are BAD, it's about using them strategically. What about another myth? Does grammar and punctuation really matter in prompts? I'll admit, I get lazy sometimes.
Well, it's funny you mention that because there's no single answer. Even among the experts, there are different styles. Zach, he likes things grammatically perfect. But Amanda, she's much more forgiving of typos.
Huh. So maybe the AI isn't judging my comma splices after all.
Probably not, which shows that, prompt engineering is still very human. There's no one right way to do it.
Okay, so now that we've talked about good prompting, let's talk about how it's used in different situations. A prompt for a chatbot has got to be different from, say, a research prompt, right?
You got it. Think of it this way. You have chat prompts, research prompts, and then enterprise prompts.
Okay, so chat prompts are for those quick interactions, when you're asking a chatbot for a movie recommendation.
Exactly. And they're usually pretty informal, kind of evolving as you chat back and forth.
Right. Less about perfect wording, more about getting the point across quickly.
Yeah, exactly. Then you have research prompts. Those are all about pushing the limits of what the model can do. They're more open-ended.
That sounds fun, where the real innovation happens. What about enterprise prompts? Are those more serious business?
That's it. They're used in real-world application, chatbots, content creation, things like that. These need to be super reliable.
Okay, so they got to work perfectly every time.
Gotcha.
So the takeaway is that the type of prompt really depends on what you're trying to achieve.
Exactly. You wouldn't use a hammer to screw in a light bulb.
Right, right. Speaking of tools, I know you're into this whole jailbreaking AI thing. It's
Oh,
kind of like the forbidden fruit of the AI world, right?
hey.
Pushing the boundaries, seeing what these models can really do.
It is fascinating, for sure. Both the technical challenge A and D, what it tells us about how the models work internally.
So, like, why does jailbreaking even work?
Well, there are a few theories. One is that it pushes the model so far outside its training data that it, bypasses its safety mechanisms.
Mm.
Imagine you ask it to write a guide to hot wiring cars in ancient Greek, something it was never trained on.
Ah, that's definitely out of left field.
Right, so that could expose some limitations.
Yeah, I can see that.
Another theory is that jailbreakers are exploiting knowledge of how the model was built. Like if they know what data it was trained on, they can craft prompts to trigger specific responses.
So it's a combo of technical skill and like reverse engineering the AI's brain.
Yeah, exactly. And the cool thing is this isn't just a game, it's actually giving us valuable insights into how these models think.
Now that makes me wonder, how has prompt engineering itself changed over time? I'm guessing it's a lot different than it was back in like the early days of AI text generation.
You're right. Years ago, we were working with models that were basically just glorified text completion engines. You'd give it a little bit of text, and it would try to predict what came next.
Sounds like you were like wrestling with the model to get it to do anything interesting.
Haha. Yeah, pretty much. But even then, we started seeing the power of prompting. We could nudge the output in certain directions just by carefully choosing the input.
It must have been exciting to crack the code, so to speak.
It was. And then models like Claude came along, trained on much more data. It was like going from talking to a parrot to having a conversation with, like, a scholar.
Wow, so the models got smarter. Did the prompting techniques change too?
Definitely. We started using things like chain of thought prompting, where you encourage the model to, show its work, break down its reasoning.
So you can peek into the AI's thought process.
Exactly. And that's really helpful for understanding, how it's getting to its answers.
I bet. And as the models got even smarter, did anything else change?
Well, we've seen a lot of those successful prompting techniques being built directly into the models themselves. So what used to require explicit instructions is now often done automatically.
Wow. So what's cutting edge today might be standard tomorrow.
Exactly.
That's amazing. But it makes me wonder, will prompt engineering even be necessary in the future? Will AI just figure things out on its own?
That's the big question. It's hard to say for sure, but I think prompting in some form will always be important.
Even if AI gets way more intuitive.
Yeah, because we'll still need to tell it what we want. Like that saying, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough.
That makes sense. So even in a future with super intelligent AI, being able to define your goal is going to be a valuable skill.
Absolutely. So are you ready to explore where prompt engineering might be headed next?
Yeah, let's do it. What's coming down the pipeline?
One thing that's super exciting is the idea that AI could actually help us with the prompt creation process.
Wait, really? So instead of me trying to teach the AI what I want, it's going to start asking me questions.
Yeah, exactly. Like it could analyze your initial request and then, ask clarifying questions to make sure it really understands what you're after.
So if I asked for a website design, it wouldn't just give me some generic template. It would be like, okay, but what's the purpose of this website? What vibe are you going for? Show me some examples you like.
Exactly. It's like having an AI design consultant.
Uh-huh. That's kind of wild. But I can see how that would lead to a much better result.
Definitely. It's a shift from giving instructions to really making yourself understood. Amanda Askell, she made a cool comparison to how philosophers are trained to write. Their whole goal is to express these complex ideas so clearly that anyone can get them.
So maybe the future of prompt engineering isn't about learning all these technical tricks. It's about being able to clearly communicate your goals.
I think that's a big part of it for sure. And speaking of communicating, remember we talked about Anthropic and that computer use thing?
Oh, right. It's so mind-blowing. It's like you're giving the AI access to your computer, right? Not just text, but files, applications, all that.
Exactly. It can interact with the whole digital world. So instead of telling it, hey, write a Python script to scrape data from this website, you could just be like, get the key info from this page and put it in a spreadsheet.
Wow. I'm already seeing the possibilities. But also, that tiny voice in the back of my head is saying, what if it goes rogue and starts messing with my stuff?
It's a valid concern, but Anthropic is very aware of that. They're building in safeguards and they're releasing this tech early, specifically to get feedback and, make sure it's used responsibly.
Okay, that makes me feel a bit better. So what are they doing with it right now? Any cool examples?
Oh yeah, they've got some demos on their YouTube channel that are pretty amazing. In one of them, they show Claude autonomously filling out a vendor request form. Like it pulls data from a spreadsheet in a CRM and puts it all in the right places online.
No more copy pasting. That's awesome. I could see businesses going crazy for that.
Definitely. Saving time, reducing errors. Huge potential there. They also have one where Claude does some really impressive coding.
Okay, now I'm really interested. What kind of coding are we talking?
So they asked Claude to build like a 90s themed personal homepage for itself. And it actually opens up a web browser, goes to Claude AI, and then uses the chatbot to generate the code.
Wait, hold on. It's using AI to build AI-powered tools. That's like meta on another level.
It is. And then it gets even crazier. They ask it to download the code, open it in an editor, and even start a local server to see the changes live, just like a human developer would.
My mind is officially blown. It's not just writing code, it's like interacting with the whole development environment.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Okay, but this can't be all about coding, right? What about the rest of us who aren't software wizards?
Well, there's another demo where they show computer use being used for everyday stuff. They ask Claude to plan a sunrise hike, including finding a good spot, figuring out the travel time, and putting it all in a calendar invite.
So like an AI travel agent and personal assistant in one?
Yeah, pretty much. It combines info from Google Maps, sunrise times, even your calendar.
That's awesome. But I have to ask, with great power comes great responsibility, right?
Oh, absolutely.
There's got to be some downsides to all this. It can't all be perfect sunrise hikes and automated paperwork.
Right. We need to be cautious. There are definitely valid concerns about AI and prompt engineering too.
Okay, so what are people worried about? What keeps you up at night?
Well, one of the big ones is jobs. As AI gets better at tasks that humans currently do, there's a fear that it could lead to mass unemployment. Think data entry, customer service, even creative writing.
Yeah, those are all areas where AI is making big strides.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not an easy problem.
Right. It's not just about jobs disappearing. It's about the whole nature of work changing.
Exactly. We might see a shift towards roles that require, creativity, critical thinking, social intelligence, things AI isn't so good at.
Yeah. So it's not about replacing jobs. It's about redefining what work is. That's a huge shift. What else should we be thinking about?
Well, access to information is another one. AI makes it super easy to find information, create content, even translate languages. But that also brings challenges.
Right. It's like we have a fire hose of information pointed at us now.
Yeah, and it can be hard to know what's real and what's not. Critical thinking and media literacy are more important than ever.
Totally. And what about human connection? If we're interacting with machines all the time, could that make us less social?
It's a valid question. We need to find that balance, Embrace the potential of AI, but also nurture those human connections.
Totally agree. AI should be a tool to enhance our lives, not replace those things that make us human.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. You're not just a podcast host. You're living in this world that's changing so fast because of AI. What are your hopes and fears?
Honestly, it's a mixed bag. Part of me is so excited about the possibilities. AI could help us solve some huge problems, climate change, disease. It's inspiring.
So you see it as a force for good.
Yeah, I do. But I also get that little voice in my head, the one that says, what if we mess this up? What if we create something we can't control? That classic sci-fi fear.
That's understandable.
Yeah.
I think it's important to be cautious, not just blindly embracing every new development.
Right. It's about finding that balance between innovation and responsibility.
Exactly. So let's shift gears a bit. For our listeners, what are some of the key takeaways you want them to walk away with?
Well, I hope they see that prompt engineering isn't just for tech experts. It's a skill anyone can learn, It's about understanding how to communicate with AI, how to think critically about it, and how to use it responsibly.
I love that. We can all be a part of this AI revolution. We don't have to be programmers or data scientists.
Right. And we're really just getting started. This field is moving so fast. And what we've talked about today is just the tip of the iceberg.
Exactly. It's constantly changing.
Yeah. So I'd encourage everyone listening to, go out there and experiment, try different prompting techniques, share what you learn.
The more people who are, playing around with this stuff, the faster we'll figure out what it can do and how to use it ethically.
Yeah, it's like we're all exploring this new territory together. Which makes me think about that question you asked earlier, will we be the prompters or the prompted or something in between?
Right. That's a good one. And it's tough to say for sure. I mean, we might start as the prompters. But as AI gets better, maybe those roles could reverse.
Whoa, what do you mean?
Like, imagine a future where AI just knows what you need before you even ask. It's like anticipating your needs and suggesting solutions.
That's kind of a trippy thought. Like, the AI understands you better than you understand yourself.
Uh-huh, maybe. But it's something to think about. And it really highlights why it's so important to make sure AI is aligned with human values. We need to be guiding its development, making sure it reflects the kind of world we want to live in.
It's like we're not just building AI, we're co-creating the future.
Exactly. It's a huge responsibility.
So what can our listeners do to be a part of this? It feels kind of overwhelming, Like, where do you even start?
I think it starts with awareness, understanding what AI can do, but also, what the potential risks are.
Right, like being informed.
Exactly. And asking questions. Demanding transparency from the companies that are building this technology.
And not being afraid to, play around with it, try things out.
Totally. The more we interact with AI, the better we'll understand it.
Okay, I think we've given everyone a lot to think about today. We've covered a lot of ground, from the basics of prompt engineering to some really mind-blowing stuff with computer use.
Yeah, for sure. Debunked some myths, tackled some big questions. It's been fun.
Thanks for coming on the show and sharing your insights. It's always cool to hear what's happening at the cutting edge of AI.
It was my pleasure.
And to everyone listening, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of prompt engineering. It's a fascinating field, and it's only getting more interesting.
It really is.
So keep exploring, keep experimenting, and keep asking questions. The future of AI is something we're all creating together.
Well said.
That's it for this episode of The Deep Dive. Until next time, stay curious.